Ready?
Ready.
Steady.
It's the sixth installment of the high-octane action series Fast and the Furious, and once again, Hollywood muscle man Vin Diesel takes on the character of hard-talking street racer and ex-con Dominic Toretto.
Just like old times.
It's a silver screen series that highlighted Diesel's strength in playing the tough guy role. And after the original raked in a cool $40 million at the box office in its first weekend in 2001, the Fast and the Furious franchise sees Vin Diesel step firmly into the limelight to become one of Tinseltown's A-listers. Just 6 years earlier, the former bouncer and struggling actor created this cinematic short about the trials of an aspiring actor.
I'm sitting down eating with my girl, and some guy walks in, a real pretty boy, and sits down at the table behind me, right? I mean, come on, you don't, what's this guy, kidding me or what?
A film he wrote, produced, financed, directed, and starred in. Yet this small-time production would catch the eye of big-time producer-director Steven Spielberg. Impressed, Spielberg created the role of Private Carpazzo in his epic Saving Private Ryan, specifically for Diesel.
No, we can't take the kids.
Afterwards, triggering a slew of other roles for the muscle man, starring alongside a young Ben Affleck in Boiler Room.
Nice job, Mr. Clean.
Flexing his sci-fi muscles as the former mercenary Richard B. Riddick in Pitch Black.
What is it now?
Like I said, leave me, you gotta worry about it.
And returning to his action roots as a rebellious extreme sport athlete and reluctant spy in Triple X. This week on Talk Asia, we're in Seoul to catch up with Vin Diesel and find out who he really is. Who are you at home?
To my mom, I'm probably Michael Corleone.
Vin Diesel, welcome to Talk Asia.
Hello, Monita.
Thank you so much for spending a few minutes of your time. You have a very busy schedule. Congratulations on Fast and Furious 6.
Thank you.
An extremely successful franchise, raking in, what I understand, over $1 billion?
It should be over $2 billion by the end of the summer.
What do you think has contributed to the success of the Fast and the Furious franchise?
First of all, I look at the 6 films as 2 trilogies. So, the first trilogy, the first 3, were made in the traditional Hollywood sense. And by that I mean, when a film was successful and they wanted to sequelize it, and they didn't have a story to follow, they would more often than not just rely on the brand and not really think about how the 2 films would connect to one another. And now, since Fast and Furious and since the numbers and the success really took off, the studio's been very conscious and mindful and prideful even about the ability to continue the story.
You've taken ownership over this franchise as well, producing these movies. What have you learned about the process and of dealing with studios in Hollywood?
Well, before I get into what I learned, the whole idea of being a producer was to be more accountable for the overall picture. It was never good enough for me as an actor to say, to look at a finished picture and say, how was I in it? And if I'm good in it, that's all I care about. Maybe because of the fact that I started in this business as a director. So after 20 years of licking stamps and sending out manila folders with my headshots and well-articulated cover letters, pleading somebody to give me a shot, I kicked off into directing a short film that went to Cannes and a feature that went to dramatic competition in Sundance. My point is, being a producer allowed me to be more accountable for the overall picture. When you see Fast and Furious 6, you see that played out in its fullest, in the sense that all of our characters shine so well, that's a testament to wanting everyone in the cast to shine, wanting the director to be the best that he... I like walking away from a film and everyone in the film being applauded for doing the best work.
Did you ever want to throw in the towel when you were auditioning, trying so hard to break this very difficult and hard barrier?
When I was a teenager, when I was a young teenager, I used to say, if I'm not a star by the time I get out of high school, I'm just going to go to college and get a vocational job. And I said, if I'm not a star by the time I'm 21, I will come up with another plan. And then I said, if I'm not a star by the time I'm 25, I'm not going to be like everybody around me.
Yeah.
Who were incredible actors, the best actors I had ever seen, but none of them made a living, and they were just local heroes.
Tell me about this one conversation you had with Harrison Ford.
I was doing extra work in New York City, and when I did extra work, I would sign in, and then I would hide, because I didn't want the director to pick me for anything, because I felt like if they know I'm an extra, they'll never hire me for a real role. But one time I did it because Harrison Ford was there, and at a young age, I felt real strong about just the opportunity to talk to somebody. I was a New York hustler. So I'm at the craft service table, and he's at the craft service table. And I couldn't play it cool. I had to just ask. I just wanted to know what the secret was. I had known at that time that I was going to be a big movie star.
You knew back then?
And so many people say that they knew, and you never know it. I knew it more than a human could know it. I used to say, I don't know if I'll ever have the white picket fence. I don't know if I'll ever get married. I love women too much. But I know as sure as I'm breathing, I'll be the biggest movie star in the world. I don't know what gave me that cause, because I wasn't doing too well. I mean, I started acting at 7. I should have popped off a lot earlier, but I can't stress enough. I mean, if there's anything you get from this, please know that there wasn't a hair of doubt. It was the weirdest thing. And even my friends would think I was crazy when I said it. One Saturday morning, I get a call from my agent, and she says, "You're not going to believe this, but Steven Spielberg saw your short film." My dad was a black actor. But he wanted me to go one step further. He wanted me to be an actor. Just an actor.
When you directed, produced your first short film, Multifacial, I remember watching it and seeing this guy, the character, Mike, this very open, very honest, very accessible, very real guy. And there's a line in the monologue where he talks about his father and saying he wanted to be seen not as a black actor, but as an actor. Tell me about the kind of auditions that you had to go through.
Well, when I was
get to that.
That's so true. The irony of Multifacial is it's a short film that explains why you can't cast a multicultural actor. And in the 80s and the 90s, there weren't any multicultural actors. And there was no promise of there ever going to be a multicultural movie star. So even at that time, even in the 80s and the 90s, I had envisioned, you know, the dream of someday being the first multicultural superstar and what that would be like.
This small, short film that cost, what, $3,000 to make?
That's right.
Lands in the lap of a really big-time Hollywood director. Tell me about that.
Well, I had just come back from the Sundance Film Festival with Strays, and I thought that I would sell it there, and I didn't sell it. And then one Saturday morning, I get a call from my agent, and she says, you're not going to believe this, but Steven Spielberg saw your short film. I just started jumping up and down, and I remember I jumped on my bed. I was jumping up and down on my bed, like a kid at Christmas. And the agent said, can you shut up for a second, Vin? I have more to tell you. He wants to write a role for you in Saving Private Ryan.
Wow.
That's never happened in any form of reality for me. I've never seen that happen in the career. I've never seen that happen to the sea of actors I grew up with. I've never seen that happen. I didn't even know if it could happen.
Wow.
I didn't believe it, and she said, yeah, he wants to meet you. He wants you to go to Universal. So I remember, like, being in my closet and trying to pick out what shirt to wear to meet Steven Spielberg. And I ended up with a white T-shirt, go figure. And I walk onto the set of a film he was filming at the time. And the whole time I'm thinking, well, I don't want to say something so obvious, like I'm a huge fan of your work. He probably hears that all the time. He probably wants me to be a lot cooler than that. And he comes over to me and says, Vin, I'm a fan of your work.
Oh my God, wow.
My heart just opened up, and I was just, that sense that I didn't need anything more.
How did that change you, that moment? How did that change you?
How did it change me? I guess the fact that my colleagues, it really changed my colleagues. My colleagues had changed. It was no longer the thespian that would, you know, be rehearsing with me at the park. It was now Steven Spielberg. And he said, you know, I want you to meet Tom. And I said, Tom who? And he started laughing and said, and looked at me like, you don't know what you're here for? Kind of like, do you know anything about this industry? Tom Hanks. And I said, oh, shit. And so I felt so, at that moment, embarrassed. And he said, no, that's a good thing. Don't lose that. He was speaking to keeping that New York integrity, or keeping that integrity, period.
And have you?
It's not easy. It's easier just to hit your mark and say your lines. But that just wasn't me. I had failed for 2 decades hitting marks, saying lines. That when I was on the set with Saving Private Ryan, I would come to the set 20 minutes early and literally talk Steven Spielberg's head off about everything in the script. I was critiquing the script of Saving Private Ryan to Steven Spielberg. I was a nothing. I thought, you know, I had this nightmare. But he
thought you were somebody, and that shows who he was as a person.
Yes.
Not a director, but as a person.
As a person. He thought that I was somebody. If anyone gets that credit for giving me the first paid acting job, I had never made $7,000 in a year, which was what the qualification was at that time to get health benefits. So I would go to the set early and I would talk to him, and I remember one day he said, I was talking to him about something in the third act, about Tom Hanks' character. And he looked at me with the most puzzled look on his face, like, this guy is crazy. Vinny, You die in the first act. You're not even in the third act. But he was so encouraging that when I wasn't shooting, he even let me operate a 35mm camera.
You couldn't buy better education than that.
I couldn't. I used to say all the time, and I would say to anybody to take this advice, I would have brought him coffee every day, and he wouldn't have had to pay me. The access to working professionals was what I was longing for. I just wanted to be around them. I just wanted to see what they do and learn from what they do. And because it was all foreign to me. I went up to the woods for about 4 months and just isolated myself to play that character. It feels incredible. It feels like validates the work you do. It means that when you do the next film, you work that much harder because you know people are out there expecting it and waiting for it. And you know it's special for them, so it gives you more pride in your work.
Let's talk about roles. There's this great line in Fast and Furious 6. The character, Owen Shaw, says, "This code you live by makes you predictable. In our line of work, predictable means vulnerable."
This code you live by makes you predictable. In our line of work, predictable means vulnerable. I can reach out and break you whenever I want.
Could that be said about Hollywood as well? If you're predictable, you're vulnerable?
I suppose. I mean, there'd be an argument that you could make that comparison. I never thought of it in relation to Hollywood. I only thought about it in relation to the character archetypes in Fast, and we had been, you know, we were so vocal about the themes in Fast 5 that the natural next step would be to create a villain that could expose the downside of what we had been promoting in Fast 5. And so the concept behind the Owen Shaw character was to do that very thing.
Perhaps those are the things that put you in a different sphere than other actors because you actually think that way.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm curious to know about the character of Richard Riddick.
Sure.
Pretty dark character.
Very.
Gritty. Very different.
Very different.
Where the hell can I get eyes like that?
Gotta kill a few people.
Okay, I can do it.
Then you gotta get sent to a slam where they tell you you'll never see daylight again. You dig up a doctor, and you pay him 20 menthol cools to do a surgical shine job on your eyeballs.
What kind of a place did you have to put yourself into? What did you tap into in order to play him?
I went up to the woods for about 4 months and just isolated myself to play that character.
No.
To the point where bears were coming. To the point where bears were visiting me. As crazy as that sounds. And it's a hard process to describe, but it's going into a dark place. A hopeless place. And now as a family man, I'm a little uncomfortable watching Riddick. Because he's so dark, I get embarrassed that I could even go to that place. And when I'm watching Riddick on screen, I almost feel sorry for whoever's playing that character, that they can have that anger and fury in them, and that cold, coldness about them. It's interesting.
Who are you at home? Are you Vin Diesel at home, or are you Mark Vincent at home?
I'm daddy.
To your mom? What about to your mom?
To my mom, I'm probably Michael Corleone.
The true hustler.
Yeah.
How has being a dad changed you?
Oh my God. Being a dad allows you to be the goofy person that you are. Being a dad allows you to be the loving person that you are. You have an open invitation to be as loving as you want. That's the perk of being a parent.
What's up next for you? Tell me about the projects. I hear that
So
there's...
many.
Well, one in particular, Kojak, and I have to say is one of my dad's favorite characters.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I would watch it when I was a kid, the series.
My grandmother loved Kojak. And when I was real young, we would watch Kojak when we were at my grandmother's house in Queens. At the core, Kojak is a New Yorker, and all the perspective that comes from being a true concrete raised New Yorker. And we got Universal, I take my hat off to them, they got Purvis and Wade, who wrote Skyfall, to write the origin story of Kojak. And the fun spin of it is a New Yorker that's gone through, a New Yorker that's survived the Twin Towers. And the way that they're writing it plays to my history. So I watch the towers go up and I watch the towers come down. And as a New Yorker on that island, that's a big deal when the biggest thing on your island is both built and destroyed in your upbringing and in your life.
If you could talk to your younger self, knowing what you know, in those days when you thought, maybe it's not going to happen, what would you tell yourself?
Play it cool. I'd say play it cool and learn as much as you can, because everything you learn you're going to need. You won't have enough time to learn. Everything is an education.
Vin Diesel, it's a pleasure.
Thank you, Monita.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.